Welcome back to Universe. I'm Andrew, and today I'm playing 2D6 Dungeon. So this is a print and play demo of a game that is on Kickstarter now. I think it ends next week, which is why I'm kind of rushing to get it done so that you have a chance to see it and see if you're interested as well. I think there is a print and play pledge tier, or you can pledge to get actual physical copies of the book and or some of these cards. I've printed them out as reference cards. But this is a game where you're going to be writing and drawing and doing a lot of the work yourself. So not a traditional board game or card game like I do a lot, but it's in the same vein as another game called D100 Dungeon, which I also haven't covered, but I got it a few months back and I really enjoyed that one. And so when I saw this one, I want to check it out as well. And it has a lot of the same DNA, a lot of the same fun stuff from what I've seen. So this is gonna be my first time trying it out. And I'm not gonna attempt to do a full playthrough for a couple reasons. First of all, only level 1 is in this current demo. The final version will have 10 levels, so the goal would be to play through all 10 levels of 10 different dungeons, or 10 levels of the dungeon, but I've only got level 1, and the designer's been doing playthroughs as well, and it's like a bunch of hours long. So this is a lot of gameplay content, and I'm not going to try to spend 10 hours playing through level 1 of the dungeon. He does talk a lot, he makes notes, he was live streaming in the video, so it might not take that long, but I'm pretty loquacious as well, so when I'm recording, so could easily take me that long. So we're just going to do a little bit to get our feet wet, see how the gameplay loop feels, and you get an idea of kind of a mix of role-playing and random number generation and whatnot. So this is the core booklet that I've printed out. So of course, not the final version, but yeah, these are the rules. This is a tables codex, so we're going to be looking up in this a lot. And here's my character sheet. I've named myself Temporarius to commemorate the fact that this is a very temporary character. I've got 10 health, I'm level 1, no XP. I have a shift value of +2, discipline +1, and precision 0. Those are the stats everybody starts out with. I've chosen to start with a heavy mace, and I've got to say, before we get into anything, this is my biggest complaint with the game. The character classes, if you could even call them such, are literally just 3 different weapon options. So I almost always play a magic user. I love playing a druid who can shapeshift when that's available, but at least there's always like a wizard or sorcerer in a fantasy setting. This game, there's not. You are a weapon wielding fighter type. You can get magic scrolls. I started with a magic scroll. This one's mental whip, but that's a single use. I don't know if you can level up into more magical stuff, but this game definitely seems to make the heavy assumption that you're just a fighter type. So that part doesn't have me thrilled. I have 1 piece of armor. I've chosen the padded tunic. It can reduce damage by 1 on some attacks, and I've got 2 attacks. I chose some ones that might be kind of hard to use. We'll see if I end up regretting this. They both do 1d6 +1 damage, the solid belting and the drubbing, but they require different dice results to get. So we'll see how that works out once a combat starts. But yeah, not a lot of character options from the beginning. Again, I got to choose the heavy mace from 3 different weapons. I chose these attacks from the heavy mace list, although I have reason to believe that the other 2 weapon lists are very similar in terms of what their attacks are. Just a name, a pair of dice, and an amount of damage. Doesn't really vary. And not very many weapon options, and there are like 4 or 5 different scrolls to choose from. But again, those are single use anyway. So obviously character creation is not where the gameplay shines. So let's get into what it actually is good at. So we've got more character sheet. I've started with flint and steel and a lantern in my inventory. I've got 3 rations. I don't think I'm going to be using the rations today. There's also a sheet for narrative moments where you could write down things that happen. I'm recording, so I'm not going to bother. And I'm going to be playing on this dry erase grid map. The game comes with and suggests that you use this dotted grid paper, basically, where you could do the same thing, but this will be bigger, more fun on camera. And when I set up, I didn't actually think I had printed these, but here they are. So the first thing I'm going to do is enter the dungeon. I'm going to come from here, and I just need to roll 2d6, and that'll get us started. So let's just roll 2d6. Actually, which one is which doesn't matter, so just roll them. I got a 3 and a 2, which means the room is 3 by 2. Let's say this here is my entry space. For your very first room, it's going to have 3 doors opening up. Otherwise, you would roll for the number of passages out from this room. But let's say it's 3 wide and 2 high, and we'll just put the branching paths out like this. And I can draw the shape of the room like so. And there you go. There's a 3x2 room, my first room of the dungeon. Again, special rule for the first room that it has automatic 3 doorways. This is also considered a small room. It's the maximum size of a small room. It's only 6 spaces big, which means it's actually considered a small room. And as I roll to see what room this is, what type of room it is, I need to roll on the small rooms table. So this is our SSST1, rooms 6 squares or smaller table. And I should say, the designers have been very clear that this is a work in progress. Of course, all demos and prototypes that are crowdfunding are works in progress, but this one especially, he's already made a bunch of changes from the version I printed out here. So hopefully you get a sense of idea of the game, but don't take anything as being final. I know he's reorganizing a lot of these tables, for example. So I'm just going to roll to see what type of room this is. This looks like this is a 2d6 table. So I'm just going to roll 2 6-sided dice and add them up. I got a 6 and a 1, that's a 7, very average. There is a grisly effigy of Mauritania here. That's one of the gods. So there are 7 or 9 gods in the setting, and you can earn favor points with them by doing different actions in the dungeon. You can invoke favor with them if you've earned enough favor points. They will give you a boon if you roll well enough. Of course, the more boons you, or the more favor you have earned, the more likely that you'll succeed on that roll. So Mauritania, or Mauritania, is one of those gods. It says, it smells of rotting flesh. If you call for its favor here, -1 to the roll, which is actually a positive thing to get a negative on that roll. We're not going to be doing that, but instead I'll just mark down and say that this is a Mora effigy to remind me of what is in this room. So if you want, you could draw it. Okay, let's take a look at this god card. So this is him here, Mauritania the Pulp. Favorite items are blood meat, leather, horn, dragon scales, and ruby. So maybe I'll draw a horn just as a visual reference of whose shrine is in here. And there we go. Nice, beautiful horn drawing. And that's it. There's no special encounters or anything. And for all small rooms, all the exits are open. So I can just leave this room through any of those 3 exits, and I'll just go north. We'll just go this way. And I do that by rolling for dimensions again. This time I got 6 and 3, so this will be a bigger room. And let's go this direction. The designer left a gap space in between. So rather than have them share walls and be right up next to each other, it would actually extend all the way through, and which basically means all this is going to be blocked. I feel like I might be tempted to not do that and just let rooms share walls with each other more often, because it is allowed for them to share walls, but there might be some balance issues because you are meant to be playing on a fixed size grid. You can expand it, but at some point you're meant to understand that your dungeon is full and you found the final room. So having rooms share walls frequently might mean you end up with more rooms per dungeon level. So for now, I'm just going to stick with what the designer seems to be recommending, and that is to have this passage extend through a whole row. This is not the opening room, so now I do need to roll for how many exits the room is going to have. So I'm going to roll a single d6, and I got a 6, which means it's going to have 3 exits. A 1 would be 0 exits, a 2 or a 3 would be 1, and a 4 or a 5 would be 2. But on a 6, that's 3. So I'm going to make my room vertical. It's up to me which way I want to do it. And let's split up the exits a little bit. Let's put 1 here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll put the last one right up here. And rather than have these be parallel, let's split them up like that and make this our room. And this is 18 spaces, which is within the normal range to be a normal room. So this time I'm going to roll on this level 1 room's human ancestry table. So depending on the ancestry of the dungeon, there will be different tables. Level 1 is just human. So far we just have humans. This dungeon was built and is inhabited by humans primarily, but it's fun that it'll be different tables for different ancestries, so you get different thematic rooms and stuff. But these are all going to be human rooms that humans would have built. And this time my dice actually do matter. So I'm going to roll. Red is going to be my left die and green will be my right die. And so I got 2, 1, which is this here, the blacksmiths. But on this particular table, if I had reversed the order, 1, 2 would be an abandoned guard post. So that's a key difference. Different rooms. So 2-1 is blacksmith. So this is basically a D66 table, if you're familiar with that term, even though it's not numbered as such. So 2-1, blacksmiths, an anvil on a block, walls lined with worn tools and glowing furnace. Encounter. So this table has an encounter column, an exits column, and a unique column, which the previous table did not have. There's someone here. Fight a jailer after roll on RPET1. The exits are all wooden doors. So the previous room had all archways. So if we try to leave any of these doors, we're going to have to roll against the wooden doors to see if they are locked or unlocked. And this is a unique room, which means if I ever roll blacksmiths again on one of my future rooms of the dungeon, I'll have to re-roll because there's only one blacksmiths per dungeon. Thematically, that makes sense. So I'm going to draw an anvil and a furnace first. We'll say maybe the furnace is over here. That's my beautiful furnace drawing. These pens are extremely low on ink for the most part. Forgotten how to draw an anvil. And they're also worn tools, which is interesting because the game also uses a feature they call inventive usage, which if I were to describe it, I would say it's like being your own dungeon master. So the description said there are worn tools in this room. Well, can I take them? Yes, you can take them. So I might just write down that I have worn tools now on my character sheet. And if later in the dungeon, I want to use some tools, I can say, well, I have some blacksmith tools with me. So that is the inventive usage system. It's using thematic explanations and justifications that you can be your own dungeon master and do what makes sense. But for now, I need to fight a jailer. So I'm going to go into my printout of enemy cards. And this is the guy I need to fight right here. Let's also pull out my character sheet because I'm going to need a quick reference to the solid belting and the drubbing. So the jailer has 6 hit points. He's going to yield 10 XP. He has 1 shift. If I beat him, I get to roll on RPT1, so I'll get to roll for beating him and roll on the blacksmith room. He interrupts using an attack called Barge on secondary 2s to reduce the damage by 2. And he's got some maneuvers of his own, the sharp kick and the punch. A 5-1 for sharp kick and 3-3 for punch. Of course, none of that makes sense yet, but we'll do that imminently. Being a jailer has made them tough, but their skill in combat is limited as they come forward, wrapping a chain around their knuckles. As they do, there's a mad look in their eyes. So I'm going to give him his 6 health, and I'm going to give myself 10. We'll use these big dice so I can see it better, or maybe so you can see it better. And I get to go first. I think that's just always, unless there's some kind of exception. And yeah, you know what? No, I want to roll white and blue. I'm going to make white my primary die and blue secondary and roll these up. So I got 2-2. So solid belting is a 1-2. Drubbing is 6-5. Well, I didn't roll any of that, but it is important. I mean, this is a little confusing since I rolled doubles here, or not confusing, but maybe hard to spot. But in order to use solid belting, for example, I need my first die to be a 1. And again, I designated white as my first die. If I had rolled a 1 on blue, I could not decide to have it count as that 1 because it is not the first die. This was the first die. So having distinct dice is important for this system. So I do not have a 2 on my primary die. For solid belting, I need a 2 on my secondary die, and that I actually nailed it. I got that exactly. However, I also have 2 shifts. So as one of my core stats, all characters have 2 shifts, which means I can change one or both of those dice total of 2 times. So I'm going to use 1 shift to change this 2 into a 1. And now my primary die is a 1 and my secondary die is a 2. And I can actually use solid belting. Obviously, I'm a lot of shifts away from being able to use drubbing, but they do the same amount of damage. So I get to hit him for 1d6 plus 1. Unfortunately, the jailer has Barge on secondary 2s as an interrupt. This attack does use a secondary 2, so his interrupt kicks in and he gets to reduce my damage by 2. So I'm going to roll a d6 plus 1 minus 2. And we'll roll the red die for health. I got a 4, plus 1 is 5, minus 2 is 3 damage from 6, brings him down to 3. So that was actually not a bad first attack. Now it is the jailer's turn. So he's going to roll 2 dice. Let's just keep the same attack dice so I keep that straight in my head. White is primary. It's using the same system, but his maneuvers are 5-1 and 3-3. He got a 4-1, and he actually only has 1 shift. but he can shift the 4 into a 5, and he gets the 5/1, which is a sharp kick for a d6 minus 2 damage. I have the padded tunic. I can reduce damage, but only if, and he does use a 5. So wow, we both actually, so I should have made this more clear. I drew this poorly. To make it clear that this 5 on this armor is referring to the primary die. So if armor lists 2 dice, it's the primary and secondary. If it lists a single die, it's referring to the primary. So primary 5s are blocked by my padded tunic, -1. So he's going to roll a d6 -2, -1. So -3 damage on this roll. And make sure it goes in the tray. 5. Reduce that by 3 is 2. And I take 2 damage down to 8. And I should have marked that that was the first round of combat. And for the first 3 rounds, nothing happened. You're just tracking rounds. But starting in round 4, you actually start giving everyone +1 shift. So starting on round 4, everyone's going to have an extra shift above what they already had, which means you're more likely to hit, which means the combat is more likely to end. So you get a few rounds of just base stats, and then it starts saying, hey, get this combat over with. Everybody can start shifting more and more. Round 5 becomes 2 shifts each. Round 6 becomes 3 shifts each. And that's actually the maximum, is 6 and +3. But we're now in round 2, so no shift bonuses yet. I get to go next, and let's see if I can hit again. I actually rolled 1, 2 exactly. Okay, I'm not cheating. This is just a really lucky way to show off some of the mechanics, because I rolled the solid belting exactly. 1, 2, 1 on primary, 2 on secondary. It's a 1 in 36 chance that I would succeed at that. And that means I get to do the damage. I don't have to spend any shifts. Shifts are temporary. You don't save them between turns. And so as a reward for not having to spend any shifts, I get to add my shifts as damage. So I'm doing a d6 +1 +2 for a d6 +3. Of course, he still has his barge interrupt on secondary 2s to reduce that by 2. So that evens out. So I'm just going to do d6 +1, and that's 6 damage. So that will finish off the jailer. And that was a pretty easy fight. And for beating him, I get to roll on RPT1. +1. So this is the random pouch table, which means I'm going to be searching his pouch. So I get to go into the jailer's pouch and see what he has. This is a 2d6 table, so just roll 2 dice and sum them. These were my lucky dice. I'm going to roll these and add 1. So 5, 6, 7, a few coins rattle, gain 4d6 copper and 2d6 silver. I get this much copper, 18. I don't think I started with any money. So 18 copper, 2d6 silver. That is a 7. And the blacksmith said, after I fight the jailer, I can roll on RPET1, which is the random prisoner encounter table. So he was the jailer, and I don't know why they were in the blacksmith place, but the jailer was keeping a prisoner. And this is a 2d6 table. So I'll sum these up. I get 4. Wrists shackled, a prisoner, long dead, hangs from his arms high up on the walls as if a warning. So that's a negative thing, clearly. But a lot of these results say that I would rescue either 1 or 2 prisoners. And when you rescue a prisoner, it's actually important to the game mechanic and story, which I'm not familiar with the story, but the designer said that it is, so I believe him. So you want to be rescuing prisoners. If you rescue them, they run out of the dungeon, they make it out safely, and that adds to your renown and can help you in the future. So this time I did not rescue any. The one I found was already dead. Don't know why the jailer felt the need to be hanging out in here. But there you go. That was the blacksmith. So the blacksmith room said that all the doors are wooden, which means they actually have a potential to be locked. I'm going to try to leave through this passage here, which means I need to roll and see if it is. So because it's wooden, it's only locked on a 6. There are different types of doors, more likely to be locked. But this one is only locked on a 6. 4 means it's open. And I guess I should mark that these are still unknown, these wooden doors here. But I get to leave through here. So let's roll up some dimensions. I got 2 and 6. You know what? Let's just make it parallel to this room. Let's make it the same height, 2 wide. Check for the number of passages out. 4 means there are 2, and I can put them where I want, or there are rules for randomly generating that. But I'm just going to put it, I'm going to put it up and down. I probably would have put it to the left, but technically it recommends, or I don't know if it recommends or requires that this would be 20 by 20. Obviously that size is not on camera. We're just kind of looking at a little bit here. But because the dice tray is here, I'm just going to have the passages go up and down. And that's our room. So this space is very likely to just be unused. Roll up a standard level 1 room. Got 6-3 this time. And this is actually just a jail. There's some metal barred cells here set into the wall. So maybe those are all along the wall here. Some bars separated out into cells. The jailer jumps up. Another jailer. You must face her. Once resolved, roll an RPET1. Another prisoner. Another jailer. These doors are actually going to be reinforced, which makes them much more likely to be locked when I go to try to open them. And this one is not unique, so there could be any number of jails in the dungeon. So we've got our favorite jailer back out. We'll start on round 1. I get to go first. So this time I'm starting with only 8 hit points. And if I want to use the magic scroll, now would be the time. And you know what? Because this playthrough demo isn't going to last forever, let's try to use this mental whip attack scroll. So in order to cast a scroll, you have to roll doubles, but you get shifts equal to your discipline. So my discipline, again, as a starting character, everybody's discipline is 1. So I get 1 shift to make these into doubles. Let's see what we get. 1-1. Nailed it. I promise I'm not cheating. Should have saved this luck for the final game. So a couple things actually happen here. Whenever you use a scroll, regardless of whether you succeed, you get 5 experience points per level that you are. So I actually get 5 XP. When I should have gotten 10 for beating that jailer before. So I'm up to 15. The spell itself is consumed. The mental whip is gone. And its effect was to just do one big shot of 10 damage. The problem is I rolled double 1s. So I need doubles to succeed. But because they're 1s, the damage is actually halved. So double 6s would double a damage spell. Double 1s halve the damage spell, which means instead of 10, I only do 5, and you still got 1 health left. And you can only do a spell, or scroll on the first round of combat, specifically on your first turn, which means that was my first turn. I can't, if I had more scrolls, I couldn't use them for the rest of this fight. And now it's his turn. So we'll have him attack with white primary. He gets a 4-3, and that actually is only 1 shift away, which is what he has and what he needs to get down to 3-3, which is a punch. So again, he has a 3-3. Those are the 2 dice he needs. He needs a primary 3 and a secondary 3. He can shift the 4 down to 3, primary 3, secondary 3, because he has 1 shift. And now he gets to hit me with the punch for d6 minus 3 damage. My armor only blocks primary 5s, so that will not apply to this because it's a primary 3. So a d6, but minus 3, so it's not a very strong attack. 6 minus 3, though, is still 3, and I'm down to 5, just like that. We go to round 2. I get to attack him. Make this in the tray. 4-1. That is not close to what I need. I need 1-2 or 6-5. We're not getting there, because I would need my secondary die to be a 2, which means I'd have to spend a shift on that, and I would need my primary die to be a 1, so I'd have to spend 3 shifts on that. So that's a total of 4 shifts, but I only have 2, so not going to work. Or I could try to do for drubbing, but I was even more shifts away from that one. So the jailer's turn. Well, this is actually a lady jailer. She gets 1-3. The fewest shifts away would be the punch at 3-3, but she would need 2 shifts to turn a 1 into a 3, and she only has 1 shift, so she fails. End of the round. We go to round 3. My turn. I get a 1-6, which is really the worst for my pair of attacks. I need both low or both high. So that's going to be a miss for me. She gets 3-6. She would need 3 shifts to bring the secondary 6 down to a 3. So we go to round 4, which means the first bonus shift kicks in. Now I have 3 shifts and she has 2. And I get a 5-6, which is almost exactly what I need. I need the primary 6 and secondary 5. So I have to swap them, which means I'm going to have to spend 2 shifts to change the primary die into a 6 and the secondary die into a 5. And that will be a drubbing for a d6 plus 1 damage. Nice thing about the drubbing is that her interrupt barge does not prevent any of the damage, because that only works on secondary 2s, and this attack has a secondary 5. So it's going to be a d6 plus 1, 6 damage. She's at 1, so she's done. Get 10 more XP, go to 25. I don't know how much XP you need to level up, but I assume that's not going to be happening in today's demo playthrough. I'll check her pouch, an RPT 1+1. So let's roll the 2d6, get 2, +1 is 3. Nothing, the pouch is empty. Well, I didn't want double ones that time. And RPTE1, let's see what kind of prisoner we found. Roll 6 + 1 is 7. There's a bound prisoner here. They're close to death. If you give them a ration, they survive. And then I would get 1 freed prisoner point. So sure, I'll go from 3 down to 2 rations. And let's see, is there somewhere I can write liberated prisoners 1? So I'll probably stop there. Obviously, I didn't get deep into the dungeon. There's still a ton of room. Again, we're zoomed in here. You do 20 by 20 grid. You can even go off grid a little bit if you need to or want to. But I really like how the tables help you tell a story, gives the dungeon life. You know what every room is. It feels like there's a reason that it could be there. There's a reason it could be like that. People live here. They're doing stuff. Love to see more of that come together, but there's so many tables. Like there's like random animal table, like who knows what kind of scenario can come up and help perform this emergent narrative of the dungeon that you're going through, the things you can discover. Again, my only complaint, well, my main complaint would be lack of character creation. My secondary complaint is there's not a ton of strategy. You discover a room, you might fight somebody, you're going to roll on what you find. And it's a game of discovery. There's a bit of push your luck. Do you need to turn around and come back? If you have a potion, do you need to use it now or can you wait? Should you try and use a magic item? There's a lot of pushing your luck against the risk of the dice, but that's not something I would really call strategy in the way a lot of the other games I enjoy feature. But I really like the discovery part of this as well. So, and that between the inventive usage system or the be your own DM situation, you can make things happen. You could decide how much of a story you want to tell. How much do you want to stick to the mechanisms that are baked into the rules, and how much do you want to create and tell a story of what's going on? You could even add NPCs or do whatever you want to do if you want to. So just real quick, look at some more parts of the character sheet so we get an idea of other things you could see happening. There are rules for being bloodied and soaked. I actually didn't read that part, so I'm not sure. I don't know if I count as being bloodied because I'm at half hit points, but I don't think so. That's like a D&D 4th edition thing. You could find treasures, quest items. These are the favor of the gods section. I guess it's 6 different gods you can track your favor with. You can track potions and their effects. And then of course the small items, additional notes, large and heavy items. You can only carry a limited number of those. How many rations do you have? And again, the narrative moment section. So going on from here, I would probably roll to see if this door is locked, probably go north up that direction, or maybe I want to explore this corner of the dungeon. You keep going until I think you do find a boss eventually. I'm not totally sure actually if there's a boss rule system or you just kind of play until you've explored the whole dungeon, but there are rules for leaving the dungeon. You can sneak out 1 time per level. You can go to the market. There's stuff to do in the evening in the town, in the tavern. There's even an arm wrestling table and legendary rewards when you complete all 10 levels. So a lot of potential for cool stuff. Fun if you like emergent narrative, fun if you like dice rolling, fun if you just want a way to play Dungeons and Dragons by yourself. Well, not actually Dungeons and Dragons, but hits a lot of the same notes without having to write a novel. If you don't want to make up a story in your head, you don't have to. You can just roll the dice and let the tables tell you what happens next. Personally, I like both. I like the tables to tell me what happens, and then I can make up the story and connect the dots. So I'd like to find more games like this one that let me do that more, which is why I back this one, which is why I'll want to bring D100 Dungeon to the table at some point and maybe try some more solo role-playing games and things that let me roll on tables. So check out the campaign to 2D6 Dungeon, this game here. Links in the description. Thanks for watching. Subscribe so we can get more subscribers, and bye.